week 1. Final part. If you've been watching our videos here on the College Algebra Learning Guide, you know that these is kind of some examples to help you with the content in week 1. And so I will link the other 4 for week 1 in the description below. But don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you get a notification every time a new video is posted to help you with our content. This video, being the last of a 5-part for week 1, is going to focus on rational expressions and rational exponents. So I've given you a few little bit of notes and an example here. To help you along the way with our content. But I want to talk you through some examples as well. So let's dive in to these 4. So number 1 asks us to reduce. Now reduce is going to mean another word for simplify. But when we see these expressions here in our numerator and our denominator, I want you to think about factoring. So you'll remember from our previous video that we had a difference of 2 squares. And so we have the numerator, which actually is a difference of 2 squares. Okay. And you'll remember our difference of 2 squares, one has a plus, one has a minus. And the terms then that we put in those parentheses are what we get when we take the square root. So the square root, what times itself would give us y squared? That's y and y. And then what times itself would give us 81? That's 9 and 9. Now look at the denominator then, and we can see that they're all divisible by 2. That's our greatest common factor. So I will put that in front of a parentheses, and then I'm going to divide each of the terms by 2 so that I get the terms that go in my parentheses. Something like that. Now, what you're looking for are terms to cancel from the top and the bottom. I don't see any yet, so that means I need to keep factoring. Now, in the denominator, I see what we call a trinomial, and that is 3 terms. Do you see them? Okay, good. Because we're going to factor a trinomial into 2 parentheses. The first term is going to be a y and a y. That's pretty easy. The second terms in each of the parentheses take a little bit more work. So let me talk you through it. We ask ourselves what 2 numbers would multiply to give me negative 18, but would add to give me negative 7. What 2 numbers would multiply to give me negative 18, but would add to give me negative 7? That would be negative 9 and positive 2. Negative 9 times 2 would give me negative 18. Negative 9 plus 2 would give me negative 7. If you want to see more videos on how to factor those trinomials, I'll put one in the cards so that you can click on it and look at some other examples I did, more practice with that. But I want you to see now that we have a y minus 9 on top and a y minus 9 on the bottom. And that is going to cancel out very nicely for us. And so my final answer is going to be left this y plus 9. And then I've got 2 times y plus 2. 2 times y plus 2. And that's my final answer here. Mhm. Okay, so lots of factoring, and then look for the things that they have on the same top and bottom so you can cancel. Okay, let's look then at number 2. And again, this is simplify. Simplify is an all-encompassing word sometimes. But I want you to see this one because you have a fraction inside of a fraction. And the way you get rid of a fraction inside of a fraction is you multiply by the common denominator. So notice that the denominators are both x and x of those smaller fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take every term in this fraction inside of a fraction, and I'm going to multiply by that denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by x. I'm going to multiply this by x. I'm going to multiply this by x. And I'm going to multiply this by x. You may say, well, why are you going to do that? Let me show you what happens when I do. So I've got 9 times x, which gives me 9x. I've got 1 over x times x. And so what happens is that x cancels, and I'm left with just a 1. I've got 7 times x, which is 7x minus, and then again, notice the x's cancel, and I'm left with a 1. And that's it. That's simplified. That's as far as I can go. Now, you may be asking yourselves, well, can't I cancel the x's? We actually can't because they're combined by an addition or subtraction to the other terms. So we have to leave it just like this, just like this. Okay, as we look at problem 3, I'm going to change our layout so that you can see my calculator. Um, I will put a link to this calculator down in the description so that you can see it. It's completely free and it's available on Google. So feel free to use it. It's Desmos graphing calculator. But friends, it makes a problem like number 3 so super simple if you know how to type it in. So let's put number 3 directly here. I'm going to use lots of parentheses, and I'll try to tell you what I'm typing here. So I just did a parentheses, and I'm going to do that negative 64 divided by 343. I just did the little slash divide by there. And then use your right arrow to then finish the parentheses. And then to do the exponent, you're going to have to do shift 6. So that's caret 6. And then use a parentheses again to do negative 2 divide by 3. Close the parentheses, and then you can press enter. So you'll notice that Desmos gave you a decimal, 3.0625. But did you see the little fraction symbol over here on the left? If you'll click that, Desmos will tell you exactly what that is as a fraction. So no guessing work for you, right? It's 49/16. And again, I'll put the link to this Desmos calculator because I think it's going to be super helpful for the majority of our course that you kind of get used to using it. So let me switch back formats so that we can look at the last problem. And that is to rationalize the denominator. Okay, so when we rationalize the denominator, the whole goal is to get the square root out of the denominator. We don't really care if it's in the numerator, but we definitely want it out of the denominator. So before I work problem 4, I want you to put a note here in your notes section that this is an example of rationalize the denominator. This is an example of rationalize the denominator. We're going to work through another example here in problem 4, but I want you to see that you actually have 2 of them on your learning guide. Okay, so number 4 here, remember the goal is to get it out of the denominator. So in order to do that, we multiply by something called the conjugate. Now, the conjugate is simply whatever it is that you want to get rid of. So we want to get rid of the 9 and the square root of 7, but you change the sign. So it was a minus before, now you're going to make it a plus. Of course, you have to do it to both the top and the bottom of your fraction. And when you do multiply this, I want you to think of it having parentheses around it. That may seem odd to you until I tell you I want you to use distributive property. So we're going to use the distributive property to multiply this out. So we're going to multiply 6 times 9. That will give me 54. Then I'm going to multiply 6 times square root of 7. Then I'm going to multiply square root of 3 times 9. That'll give me 9 square root of 3. And then I'm going to multiply square root of 3 times square root of 7. Square root of 3 times square root of 7 gives me square root of 21. Now you'll notice when they both had, I multiplied the numbers underneath the square roots, but I did not multiply a number outside a square root with a number inside a square root. Kept them separate. Now let's multiply the denominator. Okay, we'll distribute the 9. So 9 times 9, 81. 9 times square root of 7 is 9 square root of 7. Now I'm going to distribute negative square root of 7. So negative square root of 7 times 9 gives me negative 9 square root of 7. And negative square root of 7 times square root of 7 is negative square root of 49, which is 7. Okay, now on the top, nothing combines because they don't have the same square roots. So we have to leave that all written out. 54 plus 6 square root of 7 plus 9 square root of 3 plus square root of 21. Okay, then look what happens on the denominator. We have those 9 square roots of 7. One's a plus, one's a minus, so those cancel. And I've got 81 minus 7, which would be 74. Now, you may look at that and say, well, that doesn't look simple. That's not what we were trying to accomplish, remember? Our goal was to get rid of the radical in the denominator. Did we do that? Absolutely. Now I've just got a 74 down there. So this is actually my answer for rationalize the denominator because it got rid of the square root in the denominator. All right, friends, that wraps up the week 1 learning guide for our college algebra course. Now, of course, there's going to be a week 2 learning guide, and I will link it down below so that you can go ahead and get started with it. But don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notification every time a new video is posted to help you with the content for our course. If you have questions or comments, of course, please leave them in the comment section. I would love the opportunity to help in any way, shape, or form that I can. All right. Happy week 1. Bye for now.